Okay, I'm continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around just a little bit as I move along, especially when I get into the time of the kings. But right now, we are still in Deuteronomy. This is chapter 8. The Lord tested Israel in wilderness for 40 years. Eating manna taught them that man lives by word of God. Their raiment waxed not old. The Lord chastened them. If Israel shall serve other gods, they shall perish. There's some interesting stuff here. Okay. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee, and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee, and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. Let us pause. The manna, of course, they had manna for 40 years. They ate it. It sustained them for 40 years. But remember, manna was only there. They could only gather enough for one day at a time, except on the day before the Sabbath, they had to gather enough for 2 days. And if they followed the words of the Lord, they had enough. If they didn't follow the words of the Lord, then there were problems. And that's what we do not live by bread only, but by every word. So if you don't follow the word, but then I like verse 4, thy raiment waxed not old upon thee. So for 40 years, they're wandering in the wilderness. Can't imagine they had too many opportunities to make new clothes. But their clothes didn't wear out. Their clothes stayed as if new. No holes, no wearing thin, no tears. Their clothes remained good. And it says their foot swelled not. They were walking a lot, but they did not experience any of the physical ailments of long journeys. So they were preserved. Their clothes and their bodies were preserved by God so that they did not experience the negative side effects of such a long journey. Verse 7. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land. Oh, sorry. I skipped a verse. Verse 6. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths, that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I command thee this day. Lest when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint, who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee to do thee good at thy at thy latter end. And thou say in thy heart, My power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. And it shall be, if you do at all forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. As the nations which the Lord destroyeth before your face, so shall ye perish, because ye would not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. Now, it is almost repetitive. I mean, in chapter 7, it lists all the great blessings, flocks increasing, lots of children, lots of crops, all that. And we get this again. But this is just a slightly different warning in that don't let prosperity go to your head. That's what this is really saying. So you're going to go in there. God's going to bless you. And you're going to have all this food. These are listing all the crops, all the foods that you're going to grow. That the land is good for all this food. The land is good for iron. It is good for brass. It is good for all this stuff. And you're going to increase. But once you're prosperous, don't start thinking that you're the reason for that prosperity, because God is the one that made it possible. God is the one that brought you prosperity. And if you forget that, and you start bragging about yourself, or start turning to other gods, that is when you will experience the wrath of God, just as the nations which God is going to destroy before you. Just as you are going to destroy these nations, God is going to destroy you. But I like that. This is a warning. Don't let prosperity go to your head. I remember the quote from Brigham Young, at least it's always been attributed to Brigham Young, that the one thing he feared the saints would not be able to, I can't remember how the quote goes, but it was, the thing he thought would be the greatest danger to the saints was too much prosperity. But that's what Moses is warning Israel against here. Don't let prosperity go to your head. But I will see you in the next one.